What's going on, guys? Welcome back. Today, we're going to sharpen a knife. Give it a little TLC. Make sure that it can help you out, keep you safe. Give it some love. Ooh, man, just looking at it on video, I can tell it needs some love. Let's do this. So when most people think of sharpening a knife, what they're thinking about is using a honing steel. So a honing steel, you'll see this move going on, where the knife blade is run across the steel. This doesn't actually sharpen our knives. When we think about the edge of a knife, we want to think about it this way. And when you think your knife is getting dull and you run it on a steel, what's actually happening is the edge is a little off center rather than straight up and down. So you'll get these burrs in your edge. The honing steel really just brings the edge back to true. Today we're going to use our sharpening stones. We're going to actually sharpen it rather than just hone. The honing portion should be done regularly. Sharpening on a stone is not necessary as often, but we do want to keep in mind that a sharp knife is a safe knife. Yeah, this definitely needs some love. All right, so what do we need to do this? A few things. First, we need our stones that have been soaked in water. This is a finer grit, so we don't need this one soaked just yet. It's a finishing stone. This is the one we're going to start with. That's why it's in water. 2 pennies. If your stones don't have these nice rubber mats on them to keep them from sliding, something like these counter or drawer mats to keep it from sliding around is useful as well. Of course, we need our knife and that honing steel. So stones come in varying levels of grit. This is a 600 and a 2000. This is a 3000 and an 8000. The lower the number, the coarser the grit. The higher the number, the finer the grit. So when we need to do major reconstruction, we're going to start with something like the 600, and then we'll slowly work our way into the finer grits to finish it. We want to make sure our whetstone stays wet. And then there's 2 ways to find your edge when sharpening. The first way is if you lay your knife down flat on the stone with your couple fingers over top and just lift it up. When you can feel the edge of your blade, or the angle of your blade level with the stone, then you know you've got your angle. The other way to find it is by stacking your 2 pennies. That's also a really good way to know what angle you should be sharpening your knife at. So this is a little bit of a wet process. You also have oil stones, but I like water on mine. If you do an oil stone, it's always got to be with oil. If you're going to do a wet stone, you always have to use water. So gonna hold, I want to have complete control of my knife, and I'm just gonna draw back and move slowly, working in sections all the way down the knife, applying constant pressure as we move. And we'll flip and do the same thing on the second side. And you want to use the full length of your stone so that you don't get any divots. So I'm going to switch from the 600 to the 2000. And flip, keep it wet. Flip, and we're going to do it the same number of times on both sides. What you see here, this sort of mud, is actually your stone, or is actually the metal coming off of your knife, so you know it's working. I'm going to flip out of that one and into my next one, which is our 3000. My knife doesn't need a ton of work on the 600. So kind of primarily looking to finish this knife. Just kind of bring it back to factory, although it's relatively new. We always want to make sure we're taking care of our knives. I'll give it more love on the finer finishes. Again, that's our middle filings. And this is where I want to spend most of my time today, is on the 8000. The hardest part by far is keeping the angle the same the entire time and applying consistent, even pressure. This fine polishing grit should leave the edge of your knife looking almost mirror-like. Still feels a little I'm gonna wash that off, and then we're just gonna let them air dry. All right, so it's not gimmicky or hoaxy to see people trying to see us need a little more work to cut pieces of paper with their knife. The best way to do it is to find a bill you don't want to pay, and by testing it on the paper, I mean, clearly I have to go back and do some more work on this. You can see, cut this in. You can see a clean cut means it's really sharp, but where it catches and grabs, it's still not a super clean, super sharp knife. So I'm going to pull out my finishing stone. I'm going to give it a little bit more time on it, and that way I can keep cooking. See you guys. That's my 2 cents.